Hello again, it's Brian Goulet of the Goulet Pen Company and Ink Nouveau, and it is August 30th of 2013, and it is the second episode of Goulet Q&A. It's a new format of video that I'm trying out to answer questions that I get from Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and my blog. Basically, it's kind of open forum for right now. I've thought about doing some themes in the future, but for right now, it's just kind of random questions, whatever you want to ask me, and I answer them in video form. I've always been answering stuff on the various social media platforms, and it's great to have stuff in text, but in the video, it's great because I can get my personality across, my enthusiasm. I can just pack so much more information into video form than I can in text. So I've got a whole bunch of questions here. You know, I want to talk a little bit about last week. Last week was the first one that I tried out. It was kind of an experiment a little bit, and so I wasn't quite sure how it would go out. I got a bunch of questions in, and I just went through and answered all of them, and it ended up being a lot longer than I thought it would be. But that's okay. It ended up being like 50 minutes. I'm going to shoot closer to 30. That's what I'm going to try and do ongoing, but we'll see how it goes. I'm not usually the best at keeping to my time limits. So anyway, so that said, I'm going to basically, I have a whole bunch of questions. I have more questions that I know that I'm going to be able to answer. So I'm sorry in advance if you asked a question and I'm not going to be able to answer it. So please forgive me for that. I'm trying to keep it to a time limit. But anyway, so I've got a whole bunch of questions laid out and I'm just going to kind of roll through. I'll tell you the questions and then go ahead and answer them for you just kind of off the top of my head. So before I waste all my time talking about other various things, let me go ahead and get started with the first question. Okay, so at not Matt Oman on Twitter asked me, what or who introduced you to fountain pens and how long ago was it? It actually wasn't that long ago in the grand scheme of things. I kind of first got an awareness of fountain pens back when I was a pen maker. I was turning pens by hand. You might know people that kind of do that on the side, just on a little pen lathe, turning wooden pens. And a lot of those kits that you can buy as a pen maker can either be a rollerball or a fountain pen kit. So that's kind of how I was first exposed to fountain pens in general. It was really before I discovered the fountain pen network, before I really discovered kind of this whole world of fountain pens. I was kind of just aware of them and was kind of interested. At that time, I didn't have anybody that I was selling pens to that was interested in fountain pens. So it was really just kind of my own curiosity that I wanted to learn a little bit about them. And it was kind of around the time of the DC Pen Show of 2009. That's when I first started to get an interest, and I actually went to that show to try to get a bottle of ink and just learn a little bit about how fountain pens work and what they're all about. So I guess at this point, this would be about 4 years ago. So it really hasn't been that long, but let me tell you, I've packed a lot of time into that 4 years. A lot of aggressive learning in that 4-year period. Shan De Almeida, forgive me if I say your name wrong, from YouTube, kind of along the same lines of that first question you asked, what's your favorite aspect of the fountain pen community? What makes us special to you and makes you be an enthusiast with us? Why fountain pens? And I thought that was such an awesome question because really that gets to the heart of why I do what I do. Yes, I'm a retailer. I sell stuff, sure, but I also do a lot of videos like this, and I put them out there for free. The reason I do that is because I am an enthusiast. I'm as equally obsessed, if not more so, with all this fountain pen stuff than you are, so I totally get what you want, and I want to give that to you in whatever capacity that I'm able. A lot of what drives me for the fountain pen stuff is kind of going back to when I was making pens. It was all rollerball stuff. It was kind of a corporate market, gift crowd kind of thing. And I would build relationships with people and sell pens to them and then never hear back from them again because it was kind of like they had a need to get somebody a gift. They got the gift. The person who got the gift didn't really care where it came from. And that was it. It just kind of died out. So there was really no community built around that ballpoint gift-giving crowd. And I was really kind of starving, not just as a business person, but as somebody who wanted to kind of just have a greater purpose in what their craft was doing. I just really wanted to have somewhere that was kind of a little more of a community. And that's really kind of the big aha epiphany that I had at the DC show in 2010 as I got to this show and I was like, there are all these people here that are just obsessed with pens and it just doesn't make sense and what is going on? So I just was like, I gotta figure out what is it about these pens that people love. So I discovered the Fountain Pen Network. I think I started my Fountain Pen Network account that day, the day that like the evening after I attended the DC show. And I just started just diving in and just asking questions and reading other people's stuff and really just trying to figure out what was going on. And it was because of literally, I just had to start from scratch. I didn't know anything about fountain pens, and through the social medium forums and through Twitter and all these other things, I had to learn things myself the hard way. And there was some information out there, but it was very scattered and disjointed, and no one was really spelling it out so clearly like I thought it should be done. So once I kind of gathered the information and sifted through everything, and I wanted to make it easier for other people to get into the hobby who had never been exposed to it before. So that's what motivates me kind of constantly, is I always have this fresh memory in mind of what it was like for me starting out and how hard it was just to figure out the simplest things about fountain pens. And then it's like, as soon as you discover something about the bulb syringe cleaning, or just how to fill a pen even, and how to floss your tines, and just all these simple little things that can make such a huge difference in your enjoyment of the hobby. I just want to get that information out there to anybody who's interested in it, because it really just, it makes it so much more enjoyable, and people appreciate it too. All the places are built through Ink Nouveau and our website and everything. We've got a big fan base, and really it's through serving the people that are looking for the information that I have. I derive so much enjoyment out of that. So the pens themselves, to me, are incredibly intriguing. I love tinkering with all the pens. I love getting new stuff in and showing videos and shooting stuff and just sharing it with you and talking about it, and I could talk until I'm blue in the face. But it's the people, it's the hobby. I think the fact that fountain pens are not just a utility tool. You know what I mean? It's like you can have a ballpoint pen, or you can text, or you can have voice-activated speech, Siri and that kind of stuff. You don't need fountain pens to survive. Some people may argue otherwise. But, in the grand scheme of things, fountain pens are more or less, not something critical to daily function. So the people that are into fountain pens are there because they're passionate about it, because they love it, and I completely I get that, so I'm just driven by that. So very long-winded answer, but there you go. Okay, number 3, Quentin Busam on Twitter. Forgive me if I said that wrong. What is your favorite filling mechanism? Okay, now everybody's gotten a different opinion about this. Fountain pens, you have all different kinds of filling mechanisms. You got cartridge converter, piston, lever, eyedropper, vacuum, button fill, like all these other crazy different things. Me personally, now I have a lot of different ones, and I actually really like them all kind of for different reasons. But if I had to say one filling mechanism for my own personal use, I'm not saying it's the best overall, but just they asked what's my favorite filling mechanism, I would have to say a cartridge converter. And I know some of you people are going to just absolutely cringe at the fact that I said that. But hear me out. Okay, the reason I like cartridge converter pens is because I personally am a serial ink sampler. I love to just try out all these different types of inks, and I very seldom will load up the same ink over and over again. Okay, so if you use the same ink for long periods of time and you're just refilling the same color, cartridge converter would not be ideal. You would want something like a piston or an eyedropper or a vacuum that has a much greater ink capacity. But for me, I'm the kind of person who I'll ink up a pen, and then when I get halfway through the converter, I'm like, okay, let's dump this, try something else. I just have no patience, and I want to just try all these different colors. So for me, the reason I like cartridge converter, it's very easy, very low maintenance. If the converter acts kooky, you can take it apart, clean it up, whatever. If it stains, you can just pick another one. They're very interchangeable, and they're easy to clean. The bulb syringe thing, ever since I discovered the bulb syringe, a number of years ago, very early in my fountain penning career, it was just a life changer for me. And it was like cartridge converter, you just blast the thing, so easy to clean. So that's my case. You may or may not disagree with me, but it is what it is. Okay, at MobyProf on Twitter had a question. It was also almost an identical question to Miss Thundercat on Ink Nouveau. I just love these names, by the way. I'd like to try mixing inks, especially Noodler's Whiteness of the Whale. What do I need to know not to mix inks as far as brands, properties, etc.? Okay, ink mixing, I could see ink mixing being like a whole future topic for the Goulet Q&A. I really could, because there's a lot to it. I personally don't have like a vast amount of experience mixing inks, mainly because I have like 600 some inks at my disposal. And for me personally, it's like I'm just going to try all these different inks that are already there before I get too much into creating my own stuff. I know other people, it's like you just want to try stuff and do cool things, and that's awesome. As far as ink mixing goes, okay, so basically when you get into mixing inks, you're kind of going rogue a little bit, all right? So you are entering into a realm of the fountain pen hobby where there's not a lot of solid information there, and you're going to have to really experiment a lot, okay? And you got to be okay with that. So basically the reason is because these inks have all kinds of different chemical properties and formulations and stuff like that that are not publicized. They're all proprietary. The only company that I know that really posts any kind of information at all about the properties of their inks is Noodler's. We actually worked with Nathan to put together a spreadsheet that we've got on gouletpens.com on the Noodler's page that has all the various properties of the Noodler's inks. But even that really just kind of tells you what the end result is. It doesn't tell you what the chemical makeup is and how things can be mixed with each other. So basically you have to be of the mindset that like you might try mixing 10 different inks and they may not work well together. So that's the most important thing to keep in mind, is that if you're going to try mixing inks, you always want to mix them in small amounts in a separate container. You know, mix them up and leave them sit there for a few hours just to see if anything crazy happens. Sometimes they'll gel and turn solid. Sometimes they will bubble up and froth up and do crazy things. So what you don't want to do is mix something, put it into your expensive pen, try using it, have some kind of crazy reaction and have it ruin your pen in some capacity or be really hard to clean out. So you always want to mix it up, make sure that it's okay and that it stays in ink form before you ink it up in your pen, and then you'll be better off that way. So in general, I mean, there are some brands like Bond tells you not to mix any of their inks under any situation. Of course, I've heard of people mixing Bond inks all day long, and it's really never a problem. The only ones that I know are really a problem is, you know, Noodler's Bay State inks. Those inks are just kind of a different breed. You know, Bay State Blue, Bay State Cape Cod Cranberry, and what's the other one? Concord Grape. Those ones you can mix with each other, with the other Bay States, those three colors, but you don't want to mix them with anything else, okay? Because you'll get a crazy reaction. There's other things like, you know, there's older vintage inks that are like solvent based and stuff like that. Those you don't want to mix. I can't think of any off the top of my head. But those you don't want to mix with regular inks. Other than that, it's like I can't really say what will and won't work. You know, there is Platinum has a set of inks called Mix Free, and those are actually made to be mixed with each other. They come up with a whole palette. There's 9 different colors. You can mix them up into different combinations of stuff. It's kind of made so that you can mix and create a whole lot of different colors out of those. That said, I know there's other people that have taken, you know, kind of like a CMYK approach. Well, they use like Noodler's Yellow, Noodler's Blue, Noodler's Black, and then I forget what the red is, maybe Noodler's Red or something like that. And they'll do like a CMYK type thing and mix it that way. Really, it's just kind of like you just have to try it out and see what works. Generally speaking, though, if you have properties like Noodler's Black, you know, it's a bulletproof ink, forge resistant, all that kind of stuff. If you're going to mix that with a conventional, I'll call it a conventional ink, it doesn't have any waterproof properties or anything like that. Let's just say Noodler's Blue, okay? Just to keep things simple. Noodler's Black, permanent, Noodler's Blue, not. If you mix it together 50-50, you're going to end up with some kind of blue-black, right? Probably something that looks similar to Noodler's 54th, I would imagine. What's going to happen when you mix those two is you're going to have a blue-black looking thing, and if you wash it with water, the blue will wash away and the black will stay permanent. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because whatever part you're mixing into the black, you know, that's going to be the permanent part. And then the blue is going to be in there mixed too, but then if you wash it, it's going to wash away and the black will be left. So that's why you see some inks where, you know, either they'll have a UV or water interaction and part of the ink will fade away and part of it won't, because a lot of inks are mixtures of different colors together. They're not a lot of pure dyes that are created into ink. They're often a mixture of all different kinds of things. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. I know I don't have a lot more to go on, and I could talk about ink mixing a lot longer, but I'll keep on moving here. Okay, so at FMF is dead on Twitter. Would you ever consider having an in-house nibmeister? Probably a long shot and not worth it, but would be awesome. You know, this is something that I have really considered a lot in the past, and I know there's a recent thread that has kind of popped up on the Fountain Pen Network talking a lot about this. It's created a lot of conversation, and I've been asked, you know, time and time again about doing it, and we do some little things here. You know, we check nibs, we'll do things kind of by request. If there's a pen that we know has some issues or is rumored to have had some issues, we'll check them out here. You know, one of the things we always check is Lamy 2000s because they've had, you know, a reputation for misaligned tines and stuff like that. We always check those. So, you know, there's things like that we do, but an in-house nibmeister, what you're talking about basically is somebody who does, you know, changes flow, regrinding, maybe nib repair, that kind of stuff. Boy, you know, that really kind of gets into a different aspect of things. And what concerns me most about going that route, for one thing, and I think the nature of the thread on Fountain Pen Network anyway was talking about, you know, nibmeisters that sell new pens. You know, there's several of them out there that do that, and kind of like guaranteeing the pen will work to their standards as they sell it. Okay, and I get that. I get the idea behind that, and it's valid. Okay, so you're doing a little bit of a guarantee. The issue you have with that is that, you know, I've talked to various, you know, of our pen manufacturers and stuff like that about setting this kind of thing up, because I'd taken a real interest in this, you know, like 2 years ago, especially is kind of getting into it. And at the time we were carrying Sailor pens, and I wanted to do some tweaking and stuff like that. But the thing that I discovered as I was talking to like Sailor and Pelican and some of these other companies, is that basically when you're doing that kind of stuff, you're violating the warranty. As the retailer. So essentially I would be violating a warranty on a nib and then selling it to you as a customer, which, you know, basically means that you wouldn't be able to return it to the manufacturer for taking care of any kind of warranty stuff because I've messed with it. You would return it to me, and I would essentially be kind of guaranteeing that the pen would work, you know, which in itself is not bad as long as I, as the retailer, would be very confident in my ability to fix any problems that may result you know, as a consequence of the work that I've done. So it's a kind of thing like, oh boy, I really don't want to get into it unless I really know what I'm doing. And I look at my time and I look at, you know, what else I've got going on around here, and it's like, you know, honestly, most of the pens that come through my shop are perfectly fine just from the manufacturer. And if they're not, I will communicate that with them and get them to fix that at the factory level. That way they aren't just sending out bad pens and not knowing about it, and I'm fixing them and sending them, you know, and not telling you. But so it's like, you know, I can definitely see the validity in doing it. I could see the potential possibly for doing it. I really have a hard time wanting to pull the trigger on actually making that happen at the Goulet Pen Company, because I look at all the other things we do here and how I would have to split my time and how sustainable would that really be for me to do ongoing, versus doing things like shooting videos, getting education, you know, I don't know, it's really tough. So I'd love to get your feedback on that too. Post in the comments, and I'd love to keep that conversation going. So, okay, wanted to touch on that, so that's good. Let's see here. At tendollarword on YouTube, any chance of you doing a video on the Monteverde Jewelria? Yeah, actually I intended to do that when it first came out, and then the Intima came out right after that. And then, so I think I did the video on the Intima, you know, very shortly after that. And then I always intended to go back and do the Jewelria, but as what sometimes happens here, you know, things just kind of get stacked and they keep going, and something gets on my to-do list and it kind of drops down on the queue of videos that I have to do. So it is on my queue, along with about 150 other things, just the things that I've written down. But Monteverde Jewelria is on my radar. Also, you asked, are you guys going to carry the TWSBI notebooks? Maybe. We looked into them. We're not hot on carrying them right now. Reviews have been, you know, pretty good, not overwhelming. The margins on selling them is not that great, which I don't want to make you seem like I'm all about the money here. But what I say with margins is like, you know, basically with our shipping costs, it would negate us being able to make anything off of it. So it's like we literally would kind of just be a middleman for you. You can buy them directly from TWSBI. It would be the same price if we offered them. And I look at it and it's kind of like, well, if we're not able to offer you anything, TWSBI wouldn't be making anything, we wouldn't be making anything. What's the point? You know what I mean? So buy directly from TWSBI. That would be my recommendation if you want it for the time being. Maybe they'll change some things in the future and I'd be open to it. I'm not opposed to it. I have nothing against them, the notebooks or anything. So it's just that came down to kind of a dollars and cents thing. And that's an aspect of stuff that I do here that you don't really see much. But anyway. Brett Poole on YouTube, you said, thanks so much for fielding my questions so thoroughly. I was going to make a Visconti my first big time pen. I bought my first fountain pen from you and call me sentimental. I want to get a high quality pen in the $150 to $250 range from you. What's your recommendation for a juicy broad? Okay, well I think Brett had asked last week, actually, I should have gone back and looked at the question you asked, Brett, but basically I was talking about, Visconti and Mont Blanc and how we don't carry them, mainly because they haven't gotten back to us. So we don't carry Visconti. I can't recommend anything for you there, but I think you were asking for other things that I do carry. So in the 150 to 250 range, gosh, broad nib pens, I can't think of any that aren't juicy. Basically, Lamy 2000 is pretty juicy. The Pilot Custom 74, I'm a fan of that. I know Pilot, like Japanese pens, they tend to be finer nibs and the extra fine and fines. I find the mediums to be a little bit closer to European sizes, and the broads are usually as broad, if not broader, than the German nibs and stuff. So Custom 74 would be one. Something like Namiki Falcon, that's pretty broad too. Those would be some of my top ones. You're talking 150 to 250, you're pretty much talking gold nibs at that point. Maybe you can get into some Edisons too. The Edison broads are very broad. If you get into Edisons with an 18 karat nib, boy, that gets real broad, real wet. So those would be kind of my recommendations. Those are some of my favorite pens right there. Any of the Lamy, if you got a Lamy Studio or the CP1 or Accent that's got the 14 karat nib, ooh, that thing is juicy, like crazy wet. So check those out. Okay, Christopher Hulsey on YouTube. Is there a blue ink that closely matches the blue in your logo? Boy, I get asked this a lot. Okay, so a lot of times I get asked, what's the ink that you used for your logo? Okay, so if you watch Right Time at all, we got asked this question a lot. But anyway, so the ink that we technically used back when we did our ink splatter logo was Diamine Presidential Blue. Okay, but don't go buying Diamine Presidential Blue and thinking it's going to look like that. It was highly doctored. Essentially, actually at that time, we didn't carry Noodlers or Diatramentis or Private Reserve or most of the brands that we carry. We basically had Pelican, Jeroboam, and Diamine. That's all we had at the time. Maybe we had Private Reserve, I can't remember. But it was in the very early days of our business that we were doing that, and we were still acquiring brands. So we used Diamine Presidential Blue, just because it was kind of a blue, and I liked blue, and so we wanted to do it. Once we actually got it, scanned it in, and did the whole thing in the computer, I really wanted it to be more vibrant. So we just doctored the thing up and made it look more vibrant. So it's really not true to color to be to Diamine Presidential Blue. I would say if there was an ink that you were going to buy that would be closest to the Goulet splatter, it would be Liberty's Elysium, Noodler's Liberty's Elysium. And that was kind of by design. I wanted an ink that kind of matched our logo a little bit, and it just kind of worked out that way. Okay. PeartFan76028 on YouTube. Could you tell us about all the letters and things behind you on your letter wall? I'm actually kind of surprised. I've never been asked that much before. This is just a small sampling, and I've actually got a little space to fill over here, of the letters that we have. We've got letters covering like most of the whole, front office area and hallway here behind me, and I'll show you that at some other point. But these are all letters, just thank you notes from customers and fans who just love what we do and have written me stuff. And we did one contest where we had a love letter contest back in February of this year for people to win a Lamy, the Royal Red Studio. And we had people write in and just why they love fountain pens. So we got a lot of those types of letters here, but mainly all these ones here are ones that are of particular significance to me or that are particularly cool looking, I thought. I've got some drawings in here as well from some cartoonists, and I've got Sed Nokon as a renowned comic book artist, and we've exchanged quite a few emails and stuff, and he's done a couple of drawings and some original artwork for me. So I can go more in detail on that in the future, but those are all just letters of significance to me. Okay, Minibom26RS on YouTube. What is your favorite brown ink? What's your thought on Diamine Chocolate Brown? Well, you pretty much nailed it right there. Like Diamond Chocolate Brown is one of my favorite brown inks. It's like a perfect Hershey brown. Love that color, really do. My favorite brown ink, I really like Diamond Ancient Copper. I don't know if you would consider that a true brown because it's kind of a brown with a little bit of coppery red, orange kind of thing going on with it. I would call it brown. I really like that one too. I like that one a lot because it's got some other cool things going on with it. Generally speaking, I don't use browns all that often, personally. I like to use, you know, just more vibrant colors and stuff. Or I'm really kind of drawn to blue a lot, if you haven't noticed. But yeah, so my favorite brown ink would either be Diamond Chocolate Brown or Ancient Copper. Jen D on YouTube, flex pens are my new obsession. I recently purchased an Ahab and love it. Can you recommend a few inks that go nicely with flex pens, good shading, nice flow, etc. Other than the Noodler's Black Swans and Apache Sunset, already got them. The Black Swans are pretty awesome, and Apache Sunset is like one of my favorite inks, specifically in a flex pen. Gosh, a lot of colors work really well in a flex pen. Usually you want to go with something that's a little lesser saturated. Reason being because flex pens tend to put more ink down, and so you'll get more of kind of that color variation if you have a little less saturated ink color. So, you know, J.R. Bond inks usually work pretty well. Diatremendous has a lot of inks that work really well. Pilot Roshizuku, most of those work well, smooth flowing kind of things. A lot of diamond colors, some of the lesser saturated diamond colors will work really well. Noodler's Navy, the turquoise one, shoot, I can't remember what it is. Navajo turquoise, that one's really cool. Lamy turquoise actually works really well. So yeah, those would be some of my recommendations. Also, a flex or soft nib pen to graduate up to after the Ahab. I really enjoy the line variation I get with the Ahab. The price leap after the Ahab makes me a little wary. Any direction would be greatly appreciated. Well, there's kind of a gap between, you know, Noodler's pens and, you know, basically like Namiki Falcon or Platinum Maki. You know, there's really not much in between there. The Platinum Cool recently came out, and that's got some flexibility to it. It's not as flexible as, you know, the Namiki Falcon or the Noodler's pens, but it's kind of in there. I mean, there's a lot of like vintage pens that you could get into, but those are kind of scattered and hard to find and not standardized as far as pricing and availability goes. They're a little harder, but you can find some in that price range probably. Not like super flexible rare pens, but maybe some little, you know, less conventional ones. Gosh, you know, really that's the thing is like, honestly, before the Noodler's pens came out, the Namiki Falcon was like the most affordable flex pen at $140-ish. So really there's not much else. The Noodler's pens kind of did something amazing at the time. So the Platinum Cool would kind of be my only other recommendation until you get up to the Falcons. Okay. At monkehm on YouTube, I found an old Schaefer fountain pen in my parents' basement. It's a lovely pen I'd like to use, but the nibs don't seem to ever come clean. I've rinsed one nib for over half an hour with a bulb syringe, and the water still runs cloudy gray from the black ink. Is there anything I can do to speed it up, or are the nibs unusable? Well, basically what you've got going on is a real dirty pen. I mean, if it's something that was in your parents' basement, it probably had ink in it, they put it down in there, left it up, and it dried up in there, and it's just caked in. Using a pen flush will probably help you tremendously. You know, you use the pen flush, just flush it over and over and over and over and over again. You can try soaking it in water for a long period of time, that might help, but basically you've got caked up ink in there. And the reason it keeps flushing out cloudy is because you're still working stuff out of there. So it may take you a long time to work all that stuff out of there, but once you do, it'll be clean and it's good to go. If it's that old and you know, if it's a sack-based pen and you need to get it repaired, you may want to just go ahead and get that done before you go through all this effort to clean the whole thing out. You know, or you may want to consult somebody who repairs those types of pens and stuff and see what they might recommend, particularly for that pen that you're working with. But pen flush would be, you know, one of the first things I'd try. But honestly, you're on the right track. If you're still getting cloudy stuff, you know, coming out of there, then you're working stuff out. So just keep on doing it. All right, Alec Johnson on YouTube. What couple of pens do you use on a regular basis? Okay. I've got a lot of different pens, and I like to rotate them out pretty regularly. But the ones that I tend to carry the most, and I was planning on doing kind of a separate video on this anyway, the Lamy 2000, I've got it in a medium nib, but I'm also kind of a fan of the fine nib. I'm not sure if I'll end up switching to a fine or not. I really like the smoothness of the medium though, so we'll see. That would be one of them. Of course, the Pilot Custom 74 blue with a medium nib. Big fan of that. That one is nice and broken in. It's just very smooth. It probably writes a little broader than a medium now because I've used it kind of with a heavy hand for the last 3 years. So it's you know, that one's definitely one of my favorites. I also carry around a Monteverde Nighthawk with me. It's just a, you know, kind of a cool pen that I had a hand in designing, so I like that one a lot. Other pens like, you know, various Edison Nouveau pens that I've helped to collaborate with too. You know, I like to always have those around. And then the Pilot Metropolitan, you know, just for kind of a beater pen. You know, it's a nice looking pen. It can take some abuse, but if I, you know, don't want to be worried about possibly forgetting my pen somewhere or just throwing it in my pants pocket or something with my keys, yeah, I'll just use the Metropolitan. You know, I don't overthink it. Okay, we'll run a little bit out of time here, so I'll take one more question here. Let's see here. Brian, could you give us a list, written or off the top of your head, of pens that use a number 6 nib? Or do you have any way of knowing what size nib is on a pen? Okay, so pens that use a number 6 nib that I know of. There's a lot of pens that use a number 6 nib. It's kind of a common size. First off, a number 6, I'm not 100% sure why it's a number 6. I believe it's because that's the millimeter measurement of the diameter of the feed and all that kind of stuff. I'm not 100% solid on that. I've never been sat down and instructed, this is why it's called a number 6. You know, I've just kind of done like you and gone and trying to figure out why it's called that. But anyway, if you know, tell me and then I'll be a little smarter. So number 6 nib is basically kind of it's just kind of a standard size nib. It's a pretty good size, actually. The Noodlers, Ahab and Conrad uses a number 6. The Goulet nibs are number 6. I actually got those nibs for use in the Conrad and Ahab. A lot of the Edison pens use them, except for the Mina and the Pearlette and the Encore. Those use numbers 5s, smaller ones, but all the rest of them use number 6. The TWSBI VAC 700 uses number 6. Most of the Monteverde pens, I think the only exception that I can think of is the Artista Crystal that uses a smaller number 5, but all the rest of them use number 6. And let's see here, what else? The Pilot Custom 823 has a number 6 nib. And let's see here, I had some notes on it. TWSBI Micarta also uses a number 6 nib. Those are all the ones that I can think kind of just, you know, off the top of my head or what I could just kind of quickly find. I know there's a lot of other pens out there that have number 6 nibs. Jinhao has a lot of pens. It's a Chinese pen company. They've got a lot of number 6 stuff out there. So if you've got any number 6 pens to add in there too, just go ahead and post in the comments right there. So I've got some other questions and stuff that I didn't get to right now, but I might roll those over into next week if it ends up kind of working out that way. The one thing I did want to kind of throw out at you as I wrap up here is that I want to solicit from you what would be a good idea for some possible themes that I could do for Q&A in the future. Basically, I've got kind of this, you know, random question format, which is cool, and I kind of dig it, you know, having some flexibility, just working all different kinds of things, keep it fresh. But I could also see, you know, maybe not every week, but having kind of a you know, just a spattering of themed Q&As. Is spattering even a word? I don't know. But having an assortment of themed Q&As in the future that I announce ahead of time, I can solicit questions specific to that topic. It would just make it a little more guided, I guess. And if you are particularly interested in the topic at hand, then you could be a lot more focused on that particular Q&A. So I've got some random ideas, you know, but I'd really like to get stuff from you. Like ink mixing would probably be one, you know, like nib, you know, replacement, adjustment, tuning, that kind of stuff maybe. Gosh, I don't know, pen filling mechanisms maybe? How would I do a whole Q&A on that? I don't know. Or like ink properties or paper, you know, just paper in general. All that kind of stuff. So, you know, there's a lot of different routes that I could go with this. Clearly, I haven't like completely solidified my thoughts because I'm sounding like a crazy person as I'm trying to tell these to you. But if you get the idea here, what I'm going for is I want to come up with good themes and ideas for stuff that I could do possibly for future Q&As. So that said, I don't have anything like solid and nailed down for next week. Still kind of tweaking things, still kind of working out some kinks with the whole Q&A thing, but I'm working through it. So, you know, keep giving me ideas. It's great. I really love the feedback and the interaction. We've just gotten a lot of buzz, a lot of good stuff going on around the Q&A. If you've got any future Q&A questions, you can always post them on Facebook. You can post them on Nouveau under the comments of this video, and I'll look at them and carry them over into next week. Same with YouTube. You can post them in the YouTube comments, and I'll carry questions over into next week. And then if you are on Twitter, if you do hashtag GouletQA, then it makes it easy for me to search and pull those up and look at them for the next week that I'm going to record. So next week is going to be September, what is it, 9th? No, 2nd. What? Is that right? No. Hang on. What's going on with my calendar? It's showing me August 30th as a Tuesday. Today's not a Tuesday. Okay. I feel like a crazy person right now. Today's the 29th, tomorrow's the 30th. So that means next week is going to be the 6th. Is that right? Oh my gosh, I'm completely dependent upon a calendar that's freaking out on me. Okay, sorry, different one. Let's go. September 6th. Wow, embarrassing. Okay, September 6th will be my next week. I'm going to look up the calendar date ahead of time next time. But anyway, so join me for that next time. I'm going to try and keep it around a half an hour. I know I went a little over today, but sorry. And if you've got any other questions, you know, lots of different ways to contact me. Thanks so much for spending time with me and listening to all my Q&A ramblings. Have fun with playing with all your pens and write on.